Feeling anxiety about traveling? Then check out Treat, a travel health and wellness brand that offers planning, retail health and wellness services pre, during, and post-travel. The Treat mobile app is free to use, but the Treat membership offers annual benefits like a complimentary rapid PCR test and health wallet, plus unlimited access to on-demand chat care. Download the Treat Care mobile app and get a free 3-month membership using the code TREAT2021. Return to holiday travel safely and responsibly with Treat.com. With Treat membership, you'll be covered all year and have access to care, records, content, and retail all in one place. Download the Treat Care mobile app, available in Apple and Google Play app stores, and be well on your way.
Hey, and welcome to the HA podcast. I'm Danny Sheriff, the host of this podcast, the founder of the HA Society, and an HA recovery coach who has walked wherever you currently are. This is the place to come if you care about getting your period regularly. This podcast aims to educate, inform, and keep you motivated on your period and HA recovery track. I would love it if you could rate and review this podcast, 5 stars only, to help make this podcast easier for other women with HA to find it. And last thing, nothing from this show should be taken as medical advice. Please seek the advice of your physician. I know a question on your mind is, how long will recovery take me? And I know that because I get that question a lot. And it's tough because the timeline can be really unknown. And look, I can't give you a magic answer that's 100% accurate, but what I can do is ask you a whole lot of questions to understand things like what your lifestyle is, where your mindset's at, what have you already tried, what are you willing to try and not willing to try, and a lot more questions like that to determine a general range that you could expect. So I created a quiz to help get that answer to you because I was asking these types of questions to girls all the time. So I thought I'd make a quiz, and it's called How Long Might It Take to Get My Period Back? The quiz. So once you go through it and you answer the questions, it will give you not just a time range, but a quick description of how you might be feeling to help you connect with that answer and see it, make sure, yes, like this fits, this feels good for me. And don't worry, these ranges don't have to be set in stone at all. The goal is to allow you to look at the range that came based on your answers and decide, do I want to do this or do I want to speed this up? So once you get your range, you'll also get a few emails from me that week with some important tips that are specific to you to help you work through some of the roadblocks that could be slowing you down and in turn speed up your recovery time frame. So take the quiz now. Just head to quiz.thehasociety.com or find the link in the show notes and let's do this. That's quiz.thehasociety.com.
Got it, Zoom.
Hey guys, welcome back to the show. I'm joined by one of my favorite, sorry if other clients are listening, but one of my favorite clients, Heidi, Scharein. Am I saying Scharein right? Because that's how I say it.
Scharein. It's okay. It's a tough one.
Pretty close. I'm keen to have this one. I've actually been working with Heidi for a really long time. And it's funny that I haven't, and she's had her period back for a long time too, technically, but I'm excited to be having her on now because it's not like she's going to share her story, but it's not one of those things where it's like, hey, she started doing this one thing and she got her period back and now we're going to share this wonderful success story, because as many of you have heard me say, it just doesn't stop at the bleed. And there was a lot of things that actually happened and needed to happen even though she got one period. So I'm going to let her take over and introduce herself, and we're going to dive into that kind of cryptic, vague opening that I just gave you in more detail. So, hey, welcome to the show, Heidi.
Hey, Danny. So I love that cryptic vague opening. I'm sure we'll dig straight in. But I'm Heidi. I'm 35 now. I am a CrossFit coach and just regular coach by trade. So this has been a part of the journey for sure. I started working with you, I think it must have been around February, sometime around then, to try to recover my period. I had been on hormonal birth control for something like 19 years, as many of us have been since teenagers. And that actually masked the HA that I showed up with. So I had a year past gone on the mini pill in response to, hey, maybe I should stop dosing my body with so many hormones, see what it does naturally. And I didn't have a cycle at all because I didn't have a withdrawal bleed. I didn't have anything. And I just thought it was normal. You read up on side effects and it's like 10% of women don't have that. So I thought that was pretty normal. Came off the mini pill to again see what my body would do when it was time to potentially consider not being horrified at having a family, but came off the pill and nothing happened. Nothing happened. I waited my requisite 3 months, nothing happened. And then thus started the journey of trying to figure out what was going on. So fast forward to today, I think I've had, I don't know, 7, 8 cycles, something like that. I've had my period back for a significant amount of time. Still working on it.
Where did you first hear about HA? Like, were you just Googling, why is my period missing, or what happened?
Totally. So once the doctor prescribed the progesterone challenge, I started Googling what happens if it succeeds, what happens if it fails. And it's like, okay, well, there's that. And then we did a second challenge. It was the estrogen and progesterone, and that worked. And so there were some guidelines on, hey, if one worked, one didn't, maybe it's a hormonal imbalance. It didn't seem to be a physical blockage or what the other option was. So then that took me down the rabbit hole and I was like, why don't I have my period? So I went Googling, ultimately stumbled across your podcast and specifically the episode. I think it was a CrossFitter who had lost her period, gotten it back. Yeah. It was like, yeah, it was your special, like your special edition that had just came out like 2 days prior. I was like, what? This is amazing. I need to call this person. Yeah.
Yes, because it's like it's more spoken about to like runners and people with eating disorders and not just people who do CrossFit a lot and stuff like that.
Yeah, to be clear, I'm not in a small body. Like I have always been a beefier CrossFitter. I describe myself as someone ready to like push a plow in the fields as opposed to someone who's, light and airy. I'm not a gazelle. Well, let's put it that way.
Yes, I feel you. That's helpful context for people to know yet too. Yeah, like this is part of the reason it confuses so many people is because we just like physically don't identify our body with someone who fits the criteria for things that like this that happen to ladies. So okay, so you figured it out that this was the problem. And at what point did you start like making your first change? Was it nutrition change? Was it an exercise change? What happened there?
Yeah, so if we rewind back to middle of kind of going through this with my doctor, so shortly after it, so I went off the pill entirely September 1st of 2020. So over a year ago, nothing happened, right? At the time, I had been working on nutrition. I was pretty lean, but still, 155 pounds. Like I was heavier than most, so I didn't really think that was an issue. She didn't think it was an issue. But then I was like, I'll back off of this. I'm going to stop tracking. I'm going to ease up on things a little bit, see if my body can de-stress, because that was a big component of it. So that was the first thing. And I wouldn't say I made any conscious changes other than like, hey, let's not be so diligent about these macros. Let's not be so diligent about eating for this specific goal. Priorities are shifting. Let's figure this out. So that was probably the first thing. And then just trying to work through environmental stress, right? So, hey, I had a stressful day at work. Don't then go train 2 hours on top of it or train an hour. I think at that point I wasn't training anything crazy, but those were the first two very small changes that I made. Just shifts.
How long did you just like stick with those before being like, maybe this is also not enough?
Yeah, a few months. So kind of backed off in September. Nothing happened between then and December when we did, the blood work, the hormone tests, etc. And then I still rolled with that. My doctor was like, hey, let it go another few months. Let me know if it hasn't come back. So I went another probably month and a half, 2 months. And I was like, all right, this is enough. This is too much. Let's start to figure it out.
Yeah. Okay, cool. So in February, when we had our first meeting, you hadn't had a period yet, or you had?
No.
I can't remember. Yeah,
No.
You hadn't yet. And I remember our first call, and we just like went to the basics, right? And we just like stopped drinking coffee.
Yeah.
That was one.
Yeah.
Stop drinking coffee and eat more. Is where we started. Was there anything else specific that you remember? Sleep was an issue for you.
Sleep's always an issue. So in my head, I was like, prioritize it more, try not to go crazy with it. And I think I had cut way back on training as well at that point. I was like, well, I'm not opposed to this. It hasn't worked to reel it back. So I'm going to put a strategy in place. So I cut training back and had some filters on my own end. Like, hey, if you keep it below this level, it should be fine. A few days a week, we'll let you participate. And I remember I had a lot of bobbles in that first few months. I had a few incidents. But yeah, it was mostly, hey, I'll give up coffee. It is a problem, but it's not a problem. I'll do it because it's worth it, and eat more. Yeah.
Yeah. And so you're a CrossFit coach, right? So people are thinking like, well, how did you manage that? And you did have, a few kind of techniques implementing as you went along to keep yourself from going ham in the gym, like nose breathing, that kind of thing. Take a sec just to give, some tips for people who do choose to continue moving their body, but seriously need to step back.
Yeah. So I started with nose in, nose out breathing, which was nice because it kept my intensity low. And I thought, hey, this is a really excellent way. It's a filter, if you're breathing through your mouth immediately, that you've pushed your intensity higher than you should. So that was the first strategy. And then the second strategy was, if there is a workout coming up that you need to participate in for whatever reason. So for anyone that does CrossFit, we're in the middle of doing the open, as well as we had Murph that came up along the way. So there were some significant gym events that I was expected to participate in or whatnot. So for that, it was like, hey, let's cut it in half, right? Let's cut it into a third. I think I did a third of Murph and it was still too much, but resetting expectation on what success looks like. And I think ultimately what I landed on was nose only breathing. Yeah, that was great. And then just approach everything like a skill day. Reset your filter. Like, hey, I'm not doing a workout to do a workout. It has to be, hey, this is a skill session and how my body wants to move.
The HA Society is taking clients. Coach Ashley and I work one-on-one with HAers, as we call you, to help you figure out a plan and, of course, implement it and stay accountable. Whether you've worked with a health practitioner already and you just want to stay accountable and strategic with the plan that they've laid out for you, or you want to start from scratch looking at all the aspects of your recovery needs and to create a game plan to reach those needs, then we are definitely your girls. When you sign up to work one-on-one with one of us, we're going to go over your history, your biggest obstacles, ensure that we're taking into account your specific goals, and start making a plan to reach them. So those goals could be getting your period back, could be getting pregnant, could be getting back to exercise or sport, or simply working on your mindset around your body image and long-term recovery. We also can teach you the fertility awareness method. So if you want to learn that so that you have the skills you need to go out into the world on your own without fear of getting HA again, we have got your back. So our coaching packages are either weekly or bi-weekly and only a month at a time commitment. So you're not paying tons and tons of money for 5-6 months. It's month to month, which is awesome. Makes perfect sense for period recovery, right? So to learn about other women's experiences working with us and to apply for a coaching spot, plus ask any questions that you might have before getting started, just go to thehasociety.com/coaching.
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah.
And it's easy to say all those things, right? So how easy was it to actually implement? Because you're very good at doing what you say you're going to do, but that doesn't make it easy. So like, let's normalize that.
Yeah, it was pretty tough for a few reasons. So one, the expectation, hey, you're in the gym all the time. People are always looking at your scores. They're kind of looking for that. So that was mentally tough. And then I was just, fuck it, whatever, it's fine. So that was a little tough, but in terms of taking my own advice, there were a few incidents where I did go too far. Like I could see it once I started charting that I did too much and my body is responding by dropping my temp or telling me that I did too much. And so listening to that was really helpful for that accountability. So having kind of the, this is fine up until a point because my end goal is to restore the health of my cycle, as opposed to my end goal is to hit a PR on this workout. So that was a strategy. And then just picking a movement that's fun, right? I love power cleans. So I would do a 10-minute EMOM, just working on power clean skill, not going heavy, like give myself a little bit of enjoyment where I knew that it wouldn't move the needle. So yeah, it's hard.
Yeah. Okay, cool. So we had started using the chart, the FAM chart, to like just keep an eye on symptoms and things that will show us if you're moving in the right direction or not. Also really helpful thing to have if someone's still exercising, right? So we can see what the impact is. Now, I totally should have like opened all of this up before we talked, like your old charts. That's so smart of me. But did we... And I have it here.
I have most of mine. The only one I don't have is that first paper chart. It's in the other room.
Oh, good. I mean, I have it in that log as well that I did on your report. But did we see were your temperatures in the normal range from the beginning, or did they start off low? I think
they were borderline low. They were really low 97s. So I wasn't in the 96s. And I remember like, yay, you're not in the 96s, but also it was like 97.1, 97.2. That was kind of the norm for me.
Yeah. Okay. So for those who don't really know what we're talking about there, we use the chart to take your basal body temperature every morning, and we just see like, how's your metabolism essentially. And if you're a little bit low, then it's a sign of many things. And the hunch with Heidi was just that like she pushed her body hard, tracked macros for a while, and just like down regulated her body. And it's going to take a while to shift that, and until that shifts, we're not expecting ovulation or a period to happen by any means. So that gives us a clue about where we need to start. So we could see that essentially an increase in food, probably an increase in body weight, and continued rest is going to help us make those shifts. So as you improved your sleep hygiene, trained less intensely, and increased your food intake, that crept up. And once that was in range and things started to look normal and you felt good, you were eating consistently, we knew it was a matter of time before the first period came, and that didn't take long.
Yeah.
When did you get that one? March or April?
I think it was March, because by the time we hit it was March actually. So I got Oh, it says cycle 1. I found it. Hey.
Oh,
Yeah, so I think it was March 13th. So it really wasn't that long until I got the first period, but man, that one was all over the place.
yeah. Yes. So it begins, right? The
Yeah.
thing that I yell from the rooftops all the time. You got your first period, and it's like, okay, sweet, that's really exciting. And now the work begins, right? It's
Yeah.
the work begins. So, dude, like, where do I even start with your? Do you want to tell them? Should I tell them? Like what we were seeing. So you had the next cycle, right? Was long.
That first one was like 45. The second one was 50 something days, so almost 60 days. So it was long, that's for sure.
Mm-hmm. Yes, they were long, long follicular phases,
Yep.
taking forever, abnormal mucus patterns,
Yep.
and my least favorite was just your like mid-cycle and mid-luteal phase spotting. That
Yeah.
I was just like, this
Not
is
cool.
not good,
It's
not
not cool.
good.
It's not nice. It's not nice.
Yeah, it's not nice. Yeah, so you had like talk a little bit about your how you experience your period when you,
Yeah.
I mean, even from then even today, how you experience your period, and a little bit about like the spotting that you would see.
Yeah. So my period in general, when it came back with a vengeance. However, it was super different from what I remember growing up pre-pill, right? So I'm negating the whole 19 years of in between, but when it came back, it was really heavy, but with really light bleeding on either side. So instead of my normal, like, hey, we're going to do this for 5-6 days, it was, oh, I'm spotting for 5 or 6 days. Then I get my period and then I continue spotting. So I think end to end, it was something like 10-12 days where it was kind of annoying, right? There were a
Yeah.
significant number of days where like, cool, is this a period, is it not a period, what is this? And then of course my period would come about 6 days into the spotting, and then it would be, as I described to you, total shark week. So I had 2 or 3 days that were really really intense, and then it would taper off beyond that.
Mhm.
So at the time I was still having really significant cramping, really significant kind of side effects of my period, which have since more or less gone away. But it was pretty rough. And then there were days in the middle of my cycle where I'd be like, this is really strange. I think there were 2 or 3 cycles where I had a little spotting. My second cycle, I had like a mini period, like 20 days in. It was really weird. So yeah.
That happened. There was less like you had that one shot where I was like, can that
Yeah.
be like a miscarriage? That because like
Right.
you're
Like
seeing.
period ended on day 11 and then it came back day 16
Mhm.
through 20.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I want to iterate here too as well. We confirmed ovulation every time. You
Mhm.
had ovulation, so you had these high temperatures with all this bleeding in your
Yeah.
luteal phase. And we just can't be having that. So the last few months or few cycles, many months, few cycles, have been like trying to just like check off symptom resolution.
Yep.
Okay, we're seeing this, let's do this to resolve that. We're seeing this, let's do this to resolve that. So with the spotting, this was a sign that progesterone just remains low, right? We know estrogen is improving because A, you're getting a period, B, it's shark week, so there's sufficient
Yep. The lining's
estrogen.
there.
The line, we see it. But like there's not enough progesterone happening here to hold the luteal phase. Blood's leaking out. What's going on? And you're also still like not that comfortable in your body, not
Yeah.
feeling that great.
Yeah.
Talk a little bit about that.
Yeah. So I think between, the beginning of doing all this and then Now it's been about probably 25 pounds that I've added. And so I wasn't moving as much or working out as much, which was a mental stress relief back in the day, but also a stressor, if I'm being honest. And having gained that much weight, it's like I'm walking around significantly heavier in stretch pants every single day. And I'm like always reminded these are tighter. I don't feel great. It feels harder to do my job because I am so physical in my job. I'm like, wow, if I have to jog for a warm up, this feels significantly worse. Um, but I think that just plays over to kind of goals and mindset. The thing I had to really remind myself is that I'm out to improve my health, and my body does not want me to be smaller right now. And so if I keep fighting that in my head, it's just not going to serve my overall goal. So I kind of had to let go of that to worry about it, to stop worrying about it. But it's certainly not comfortable to have to gain a significant amount of weight. And at the time, after reading No Period Now What or whatever, and then the thought of going all in and then trying to get enough calories to support my period, it was like, okay, 2,500 plus. And I know being in a bigger body and being active for work, it was probably going to be more. I was eating some things that didn't feel great. I was just padding calories in there however I could get them, and those things also made my body feel really puffy and icky. And, there were more pastries than there should have been in terms of how I felt.
Totally. And no judgment, right? Like, I'm
Yeah.
pretty sure I was like expecting my baby to come out as a croissant or like
Yeah.
half croissant. Yeah. And I wanted you to share that. I don't know how I'm like just doing such a good job right now of like timing this conversation to go where I needed to go. Didn't even plan it.
Good work.
So the reason I wanted to bring that up, right, was because when we see these cycles that are all over the joint, I think a lot of people's immediate reaction is, okay, we got to go to the doctor, we got to get this blood work, something's happening, I'm dying, I have leaky gut syndrome, everything's my life's falling apart. But we can slow it down for a second and start investigating without that stuff. We have the chart showing us as a problem. We can get a vibe for like the hormones that need support here. And now that we can see what that is, let's look at your lifestyle and your nutrition and dial it in. So it was one thing for us to say, okay, ditch the coffee, eat more food, stop exercising. Let's see if your period comes back. That worked great.
Yep.
But it wasn't optimal. I don't know, you almost might as well have, to a degree, not have had your period at all. If it's like almost 50 days apart and you're like in fetal position on the floor holding your uterus, crying.
Yeah, that's accurate.
Yeah. And like super unhappy in your body and, not being able to participate in things that you really enjoy. So
when you say it like that, Danny, it sounds pretty miserable.
Yeah, we don't want that.
No.
But we took a while to get to this point because I'd say like you were doing all the right things. And I'm not a big believer of like completely change absolutely everything you're doing for the reasons of like wanting to get the most results with the least amount of work possible and wanting to know what's actually working and what's not. I don't want people to like completely change their diet if it's not necessary. So we were kind of systematic about it. And truthfully as well, like some shit was happening to you that I didn't know the answer to. Like, and so there was a lot of like research. Okay, this is happening. By the next time I talk to her, I will have looked into this and we'll try this. And that was a really great experience for me personally, to get to work with you and just see everything that just doesn't match the textbook. It just doesn't match what's meant to happen. Doesn't match what everyone on Instagram says happens when you
like got your period back in 2 months, got pregnant. I'm like, oh, that's not me.
No, like what's wrong with me? And there's nothing wrong with you. We looked into diet, and so basically, to not skip ahead here, we've had a bunch of periods where they were really long. You had super short luteal phases, you had weird bleeding, and then we would make a change, like have you eat more carbs or something like that, right? And we would see positive progress, but there would still be something that's up. And the thing that was cool was we would try one thing and a symptom would improve.
Yep.
I liked that linear progress, although it was slow. What was is that how you experienced it? Because that's
totally. That's it. And I'll only add that I had really fragile, finicky ovulation as well. Like those first 2 cycles, I had the vaccine in the middle of one, and I did that. I mentioned the workout hiccup. I did Murph in the middle of the other. I was like on track to ovulate, like cervical mucus, whole thing, and then like bye, get out.
Yeah, and that's a part of why it sometimes can take longer for us too, right? Because I'm not ready to implement the next change or recommendation because, well, you had a month that like the vaccine spiked your shit, or you didn't.
So you don't know. The data was skewed for
exactly. And so that can slow things down, and it just is what it is. But yes.
Yeah, I think you're accurate in how I experienced that. And I really appreciated that there was movement each month, even though it was slow. Like, hey, at least it wasn't a 60-day cycle. Like we're on to something there. Or, hey, you know, my symptoms are improving. My period symptoms aren't as bad. Or all of those things tell me something is changing, which for me, it resonates. I'm a coach by trade. And so when there's progress of any sort, it's like, cool, at least I'm not the same. At least this isn't the same hole that I was in. So I see the light and I'm happy to keep on this path. And I think it also prevents the swing, and why all in didn't really resonate with me. It's like, oh, you're going to stop doing absolutely everything. Well, what happens later in life when you decide to go back to all those behaviors that you haven't addressed? Right?
Yeah.
So I think to your point, just the gradual implementation let us know what was working, and then also gave me some strategies that down the road I have the variables that I know will manipulate what I need them to. Yeah.
I mean, that's really like, which lever do you pull?
Yeah, totally.
We need to know that information. And go and eat tons of burgers and fries is like not a lever. It's not a lever that I have in my toolbox.
It's not repeatable. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't agree with that. But you know, food, one aspect that you did do was just like increase food from wherever you're getting it, right? So we were seeing progress, but we were still like getting this mid-cycle spotting or this like these short luteal phases.
Cute little 9-day luteal phase.
Yeah. So like, dude, long follicular phases, super fragile ovulation, short luteal phases, early spotting, terrible cramps, weird mucus patterns. Great. Wow.
so fun. And this is success. Like if you identify success as, hey, I have my period back. I had my period back for months at this point. Like, you know, success, exactly. But not optimal. Yeah,
exactly. So as we made changes, we would see shorter follicular phases, which is nice. We would see good ovulation. We would see a period, but that's kind of the order it went in. And now when it came to resolving this luteal phase issue, this defect, essentially, this weird spotting, it was time to like look at the quality of food you were eating. I feel like we really focused on quantity. We did focus on macronutrients to a degree, but I just caught myself in the face. But you were still like eating high carb processed foods, right?
Yeah.
And I think
so
that was a big one.
Packing in calories where I could get them, and usually that meant like something extra at night. I'll have another bowl of cereal. I don't even remember what I was eating.
Why do I feel like it was oatmeal?
I always have oatmeal, but then like there was extra. Like I'd have oatmeal for breakfast with egg whites and everything to at least get some protein. But then I would have like cookies, because I have a good friend who's a baker. And I was like, cool, I will eat this entire quarter-pound cookie right now because I need extra calories. And they're delicious and I love them, but also not really helping.
Yeah, treats.
Yes.
Treat monster.
Treats.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it gets confusing because for HA recovery, we get that advice. We get like calories,
Eat more, no matter what.
No matter what. Yeah. And so that can help to a degree, and it's a very important aspect, but it cannot be the sole like method for recovery. And so it was time to touch that bit, right? Like you were consistently eating, we tried certain things, and considering like other aspects like sleep is a challenge for you to get quality sleep. That was also something that's like, well, cleaning up what you eat could result in that. So we saw these symptoms you were having, and you were at a higher body weight now that we're like, okay,
I'm weight restored. Undeniably weight restored.
So we're ready to go. What do we think might be a shift? And we decided to shift carbohydrate intake in general and increase protein.
Yeah.
How'd that go?
It went great. It was so good. So it's harder, right? So getting easy carbs is simple. Eat a cookie, you're going to get your calories. There's zero problem with that. It's just easy to eat. But when you're at a higher body weight and you're trying to fuel with enough protein, not just for your body in general, but add in an active lifestyle, it's a lot of food. And if you've ever counted macros, usually that first day of eating enough protein for your body weight is like, oh no, how much chicken? Like, what do I need to do? So it requires some planning throughout the day. So some shifts like, hey, I'm going to make sure to drink collagen with breakfast, make sure I'm at least getting 40 to 50 grams with breakfast, because there's no way I'll hit this amount by the end of the day. So we shifted more heavily toward more protein and more fat, which if you've ever counted macros, it's usually high protein, medium carb if you're training, and then lower fat so you can cut weight generally. And so this is a big departure from what I had done pre-HA. So more fat, which my body likes in general. So closer to 100 grams instead of like 65, 70 grams. Significantly more protein, which again, I just had to plan into. And I think the other recommendation you made, you looked at my logs and you're saying, I don't see any root vegetables. I'm like, okay, like, let's try it. So give me some parsnips, some carrots, whatever.
Yeah.
So I threw in some of that. So a little bit of that starchy carb that wasn't rice, or rice is my go-to, that wasn't rice or processed. And I think that was something I tried to do as well. So in terms of results, immediately I felt more full, like over full to start, but then was able to plan that in. And then in terms of symptoms, like that was the turning point of where my periods stopped sucking. Like they, since that point, have been much less symptomatic. All of the things have kind of fallen into place on that. Less cramping, like literally before I'd lay in bed and didn't want to get up and didn't want to do anything, just like, oh. And this last time I was like, okay, this is fine. Like 2 out of 10 instead of 8.5 out of 10.
So this is such a great case study, right? Because this isn't like a weird, unique thing that, oh, like that's what worked for Heidi. When we see your pre-ovulatory phase looks good, ovulation is clear, but luteal phase is still short and there's bleeding, we know this is a progesterone issue, and we know to handle that with protein.
Yay.
Almost always, like it's so just protein, y'all. And then stress on the body, inflammation. So it's like, okay, how is your processed carbohydrate? How's your pasta, rice, bread intake compared to your meat, fat, vegetable intake? And 9 times out of 10, when I look at someone's food log, we're missing the root vegetables. Why? They're a pain in the ass to cook. They're just more effort. And so it's really easy for them to go missing, but they're so important. They're full of vitamins and minerals and nutrients that we're generally not getting from our leafy greens. So it was, and if you're not eating enough protein, well, then you're probably not getting those nutrients from the protein either that you could be getting from the root vegetables. So increasing all of those things, that's just hugely important for everyone. And so anyone listening who does have a luteal phase issue, like those are just recommendations for everyone.
Yeah.
So lo and behold, our last session 2 weeks ago, you sent me your chart and I opened it and I was just like, oh, holy shit. It fits on one page. It has like, I should open it. It had like a 14-day luteal phase or something.
I think it was, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. It was 12 bordering on 13, I think.
Okay.
Maybe it was, no, it's 13, 12 or 13. At any rate.
Which one am I looking at? The right one? Is it the September to October one?
September to October. Yeah. Because the one before, the August to September, I had a full 7 days of spotting before my period. Fit on one page, but full 7 days of spotting. And then September to October, yeah, it was 12.
Yeah, okay. Are you talking about your luteal phase or your follicular phase?
Yeah,
okay. I'm talking about follicular. Okay.
Oh,
so,
yeah.
Guys, we get this chart. We get this chart and she has a 19-day follicular phase, which is really good for her.
Yeah.
Really good for her. Pretty common for a lot of people. The 14 days thing is like rubbish textbook advice. We are very happy to see this that she ovulated on cycle day 20, and it's this big clear shift, and all but one of 12 temperatures remain just obviously high, that like that when one is just low, it just doesn't matter, we just ignore it. So it's beautiful. And then on cycle day, on the 13th day of the luteal phase, it comes down and she bleeds, and there's 1 day of significant spotting prior to the actual bleed happening. So all of this is just like an 80% massive jump in improvements. And I actually like got teary.
I remember that.
The mucus phase too. It was, so you had like your bleed was less intense. You did have longer spotting. There's root. This shit doesn't go 100% perfect overnight, but it was just so much better. You had like a really normal looking mucus phase. Some came, it went away, then it came back, which explains why it was like a longer kind of 19-day phase. But that's fine with me, because then it rose and then your days were dry and then they just waited and then you bled. And it was
Wasn't it so nice and patient? Thank you, progesterone.
It was, like it hung up high. And all you did was shift this focus on processed food, or at least like basically lack thereof focus on quality, shifted that, ate more protein, and voila. And tell me how like mentally it feels to kind of be able to go back to quality over quantity of food.
Oh, it felt so much better. It felt absolutely horrible to have to eat like stuff that didn't make my body feel good, like cookies, just for the sake of eating more, because I didn't feel like I could get in more food. So shifting back to something that I knew was healthier for me, that made my body feel better, that made my stomach feel better. Like, let's be real, my energy and my poops were better. So that's always good. So it was a significant improvement in just the day-to-day feeling, eating more in line with, a healthy diet as opposed to just junk carbs, as we call them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So congrats.
Thanks.
And so now I'm just looking at your chart from today, because technically we're doing this in this podcast episode / session. And you're on cycle day 18 today, and it looks like you saw some mucus yesterday.
Yeah, it started to show up. It was a little bit of sticky, so just wait and see.
Yeah, and so
tis the season.
We're going to go into the next few days of mucus. Looks like you've been doing some training. Is that what that? So yeah, and yeah, we'll just wait and see what the next one does, but we're kind of on track for a similar outcome, which is great.
Yay.
I'm so happy.
To see the progress cycle over cycle has been by far the best reassurance that I'm on the right path. And I think that's the biggest thing. I think if you don't have the data to know that things are working or changing, or you don't see any change, it can be really frustrating to do things that are hard. So I'm happy.
I think if you didn't have any of that data, you would feel more confused.
Oh, totally.
Yeah.
Be like, why am I doing this? Like my cycle is still this way, or I wouldn't know that, I probably wouldn't know that my luteal phase is garbage, or wouldn't have thought of that. Certainly. And
it would have just felt like everything was all over the place. And that's just so many people, they don't want to do it yet because it's overwhelming. And I get it. And that's why, go get a guide. Like, I'll help you do it. But you'd be treading water.
Yeah. I also think, if your end goal is to get pregnant and you think you fixed your cycle because you got your period back, this is just a tale to tell you, like, maybe not, And so I see that if this had played out differently, if this had played out like, cool, I have my period back, like, we've been trying to have a baby for 9 months, whatever it is, doctor, help me. Like, do we need to look into IVF? That's a very different, set of outcomes than like, hey, it's just something that's taking its time, right? Because I'm a year out of being off the pill now. So technically, like, this is roughly the time most people are like, hey, phone a friend, phone a doctor, let's figure this out. And I think that what scares me most is if I hadn't had this info to understand, like, you hear horror stories about failed IVF, you hear horror stories about like, hey, your body doesn't want to accept this. So this feels like the work to do. This feels like what to do.
Totally. Yeah. Your luteal phase would not have enjoyed any kind of forced ovulation or insemination.
Wouldn't have helped.
It wouldn't have helped much. Yeah, well, exactly. See, this is so that is the moral of the story. This is what I've this is what I like lie awake at night and think about. So I'm just pumped for you. It's not gonna be long before, pretty much is like, because your next goals is conception, right?
Yeah.
Or we can focus on that.
Yeah, finally. After I remember, rewind a year, I was taking pregnancy tests because my period hadn't come back. I'm like, I guess every 2 weeks I'll take one. Negative, negative, negative. I'm like, someday, like, I actually know now, like, hey, I've ovulated. Here's the right time frame, as opposed to like, well, I haven't had a period. I don't know.
Yeah, exactly. So good.
Yeah.
Well, congrats. Do you have any other parting thoughts, words, messages, things that you need to get across to these lovely ladies listening today?
Yeah, I would say your body is different than anyone else's. You can't really judge your success based on other people's outcomes. So you hear these great stories, got my period back in 1 month, and then I got pregnant next cycle. And I think just remembering that your overall goal is to restore health to your body, and comparison isn't really helpful. And if you feel like you're failing because you're comparing to someone else, I would just say, let's recheck what your why is and why this is important for you, and try to remember that you're different. Everyone's different. Success looks like different things, and it might be this incremental growth. It might be like, great, everything did fall into place perfectly, but your body is smart. It'll find the way.
Yay.
Yeah.
This has been a really just nice little like sit back and reflect on your whole journey.
Yeah.
It's been super tough. And like, even just from my perspective of, I don't know, like about to hop on a call and be like, what are we going to look at today? Like,
what's it going to be?
But just knowing that like, there's always like a next step and something that we can try. There's just no dead ends. There's no dead ends. And if that means getting you to redo a food log and reevaluate, it's been a bunch of months since we last looked at it. And basically starting again from scratch every few months, that's just what we're going to do.
Yeah.
But always a next step. And so, grateful for you. Thank you.
Love it. Love you.
Bye, guys.
See ya.
Thank you so much for listening today, guys. Please subscribe to the podcast, and if you could head to iTunes specifically and leave a rating or review, that would help so much, because it makes it easier for other people with HA who are Googling around to find the podcast really easily. So if you do that, you're doing a service to all of the women.
Lacuna Health is a call center that goes beyond answering calls. Our highly trained staff handles the clinical needs of patients and extends the care of your practice 24/7. Our experienced RNs offer HIPAA-compliant nurse triage that helps to reduce unnecessary emergency room visits and monitor patient health using your standards and protocols. We answer calls within 30 seconds, and patients have nursing care within 30 minutes. Click Contact Us at lacunahealth.com to see how we can help.
Holidays are here, and so is fashionable fitness. Gift yourself a Samsung Galaxy Z Flip 3 5G, a phone that folds in half to literally stand on its own. Pair it with the Galaxy Watch 4 for ultimate wellness and wow factor. Check health stats, flex personal records. Over 90 activities can be tracked, like biking, swimming, golfing, and more. Invest in yourself with tech made to crush goals. Holidays open up with Galaxy. Shop it all at Samsung.com. 5G connection and availability may vary. Check with carrier. Products sold separately.